We're live.
We had to run the electric car down to the dealership. I think it's all good, but I think the regular car battery had an issue.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mayor, yeah.
That reminds me, one of your cruisers has a headlight out. Whichever one Colton was driving last
Okay.
night has a headlight out.
He just called and was talking to Beam and Colton ordered one, it didn't work.
Okay.
Beam was gonna take care of it. He just talked to him on the phone.
I passed him last night on the way home, I noticed.
Oh, yeah, thanks for the heads up. I appreciate it.
4 p.m., this work session of Mayor and City Council is called to order. Take call of the roll, please.
Commissioner Ritchie. Here. Commissioner Grove.
Here.
Commissioner Carter.
Here.
Mayor Logsdon.
Present.
And we will let the record show that Commissioner Forsyth could not be here today.
Okay, we will first entertain under item 3, special presentation. We'll call on Deidre. We'll call on Deidre Robertson to make presentation for Frostburg First. Do you want a chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can sit in that chair if you like.
Oh, over here. Okay.
If you like.
I don't mind. I had a vacation with a ladder over the weekend.
Can't win for losing.
First, hello everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. What I'm essentially coming to talk to you about today is some of the changes that have happened both at the state level and the national level for Maryland or Main Street designations. We're under a much more rigorous designation process now, and so every year we have to do sort of a redesignation application. We did actually just receive our 2025 designation, so everything's moving forward that way. I believe, was Christine able to sign on yet? Or?
She is not here yet.
Well, hopefully we're going to be joined by Christine McPherson, who is the director of the program that oversees our Main Street Maryland program for the state, and she can explain a little bit more. But essentially, we are now required to submit, and this will be an annual thing, the agreement for designated communities. And so this is a joint letter of agreement between the Main Street organization, our local government, and the state of Maryland through DHCD. And so we submit this, and this is part of our state designation. Once that's approved, we then move up through the national process again. So we'll need to redo this pretty much this time every year. And so I think that should have been attached in your materials there. But it's essentially just outlining the, is that Christine there?
Yep.
Okay. It's essentially just outlining the commitments that all of the different organizations make between the local government, Frostburg First as the Main Street program, and then DHCD as well. So if that's Christine, I'll let her talk about that a little bit more, but I just wanted to take a brief minute too before we get rolling on that to just do a review of sort of the impact of the Main Street program in Frostburg. What do you, if you don't mind?
Is that it?
Yeah, so this is from Main Street Maryland. This is an impact report. This goes back from the beginning of the Main Street program in Maryland, and I believe it's on the next page there. Yeah, Frostburg's right up there at the top. And this just kind of gives you an overview of the overall impact of, the Main Street program over the years. So looking at, and this is based on the reporting that we submit in conjunction with the city. Kind of gives you an idea of jobs created, jobs lost during the time period, public improvement projects, private improvement projects. This is probably not 100% accurate because this is going over a number of years with multiple directors and things like that, but gives you kind of an idea of what our impact is, and you can see a little bit where we stand in terms of the rest of the Main Street programs in the state. And that should be, I think, included in the presentation if you want to dive a little bit deeper. And then, yeah, we'll move on. So just kind of a reminder of some of the things that we do. When our primary goal is, economic development. And so this is handed down to us by the National Main Street Program. It's something that's reinforced by our state program, and that forms into our core mission and values as an organization as well. And so that takes a number of different paths. We're in Maryland, so we have sort of a 5-point approach. So there's organization, which is ensuring that there's a healthy organization that oversees the project, that it's constantly being updated, that we are streamlining our processes, that we are representative of our community, things along those lines. Promotion, which is another one of the pillars, and that includes the events that we put on, marketing that we do for the city itself, for the downtown area, and other programming and things that we pull in that would attract people to either live or, visit Frostburg in the area. Sustainability is one that is specific to Maryland, and so this includes projects that are green, focused on creating a sustainable community. So this is something that we work with a lot on the green team. Then we also have design, which factors into some of the public art projects that we have been a part of, even like the honors banners, that would kind of factor into that as well as other larger projects. So anything to do with, for instance, putting a pocket park in or things like that, we would try to be involved. That also involves some of a little bit of crossover into the economic vitality side, which is where we're looking at projects that help to sustain and improve the economic health of downtown Frostburg. We look for resources to provide our businesses, for new businesses existing and expanding, and also looking for projects sort of down the road that would add to the overall economic health for downtown Frostburg. So those are sort of the 5 pillars that we factor in with all of our goals, and all of our projects kind of surround that. And so then just kind of a highlight of a few of the things that we did over the past year. We have spent over the past year about $25,000 on destination marketing. This is for Frostburg as a whole, so the goal is highlighting different aspects of Frostburg, whether it's our businesses or its events and activities, or our attractions like the train and Gap Trail and Tracks and Yaks and things like that. That will help to encourage people to visit or potentially relocate to Frostburg. And this has been done through print advertising. We actually did a campaign through Comcast for streaming TV, and then this past year we did one with the DC, and they keep changing their name, but it's the DC News Now, that station. And so that's been both on television and on their streaming as well. And then if you move on to the next. One of the biggest projects that we've undertaken over the past year is becoming a local community, and this is an organization that works specifically with Main Street programs all over the country, and it's essentially creating a larger network of communities so that there's more cross-promotion, there's accessibility for businesses, especially somewhere for businesses who don't necessarily have a strong online presence, to have somewhere to go, and it's a free service that we help to provide. So this allows everybody to have their own directory page online. So we sort of have like our map directory that you can visit. This gives everybody a directory page that they can control, that they can update, they can put their events on it, and that gets uploaded to the event calendar. They can send out blog information from it, newsletters, so it's a really good opportunity. And we're working on getting more of the businesses to take an active role. We have over 80 businesses registered with it now, and it's just a matter of getting them to keep uploading things on there, but we're getting there. So that's been one of the major projects this year. We also manage a BurkeBucks citywide e-gift card program, and so this is now, we started this out, and it used to be that we'd have to write checks for people, and we don't have to do that anymore. This is all online, and it's just a way of encouraging people to spend more in downtown Frostburg, and so it's a nice campaign that we're able to do. We did a $4,000 marketing campaign for this during the holiday season as well. The next one, community safety. We worked with the city and of course Chief Costello to get some of these security cameras installed. I think we had a total of, is it 11, I believe?
That sounds right.
Yeah, 11
Outstanding.
installed, and we still have some funds left that I believe we were going back and forth about putting another 1 or 2 in. So that's a project that we were able to access as a Main Street program as well. This is the other sort of major project that we've been involved with over the past year, where we brought in downtown development services to conduct a revitalization roadmap and a feasibility study on the old City Hall building at 59 East Main as well. This included some market research. We did public stakeholder meetings, private stakeholder meetings. They did a lot of independent research as well. And they were able to put together this report, which we shared with the city as part of the comprehensive planning program. We've also applied for an additional grant now to continue this process and do additional market studies that would be beneficial for businesses. So for people coming in to be able to determine, well, what is the best type of business, how should I shape what I'm doing, and also for our existing businesses to consider how they want to market things, what updates they need to make. So that's another one of our significant projects. I think that was, and then of course, public art is something that we're involved in as a arts and entertainment district program. And then this past year, we were able to have the new Brownsville Memorial, the Anchors of Endurance, installed, and that's an ongoing community project. It'll be interactive throughout the years. Members of the founding families will be able to come back and visit it every year. We can stamp additional names on there. There's a landscaping project in progress, so that's an active living project still going on. And then Project Restore, which has eaten up most of my time this year, is we're really excited. One East Main over here is going to be opening up in the next month with 2 new businesses. It's been completely renovated. He's going to be doing upper story apartments very soon, I believe, like within the next month or 2. And that was made possible through Project Restore, and as well as 27 East Main, where Frostburg Fitness is now opening up. And that's, again, projects that were available because of us being a Main Street program and able to go after those types of funding. I think that was, yeah, and then just to highlight, take a look around if you haven't seen the banners yet this year. I think we had somewhere around 50, 55, I think, total banners. There's a couple that have to still be put up that came in late, but it's nice to see that kind of community support for a program like that. So.
Refresh my memory, Deidre, because we're both on the board of the museum too. When that started, it was brought up at the museum board as a project. Is that something that you work with them, or somebody just had an idea and Frostburg first took it on? Refresh my memory how that
happened. It was a roundabout way that it came to us. It was Melissa Wilt and Kim Rayleigh, so 2 community members who are part of an online Facebook group, Frostburg Serves. It's just, locals, who have relations or, family history with the service. And they wanted to do a project like this. I believe they actually came to Elizabeth Stallman at the time, and then she sent them over to us, and so we got started there. And then so with the Frostburg Museum, the idea originally was to somehow have some kind of coordinating exhibit, but that never really panned out, unfortunately. Yeah, so that's sort of my little spiel on the importance of the Main Street program specifically here in Frostburg. And then I think if Christine is there, is she?
Yep, if we just want to unmute her and let her know. She is.
Hi, Christine.
Christine?
She's muted on there.
Christine, I think you're muted.
She did have her picture on.
But the idea is to have her just kind of give an update on sort of why things have changed, and that there's a new, I think, you should have received a letter, I believe it was directed to me, was the mayor, about sort of how the new designation tiers are. So we are still
Yes.
in the top tier for state designations, but this is just sort of the new process since the national has kind of upped their requests for us. Is she? Well, I guess while we're waiting for that, does anybody have any questions for me about the program, about any of the information in the agreement there?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm glad that we were able to finally get this done, because I know it's been a couple months that we've been working on it. So,
You did a lot more than I thought you did, than I knew you did.
Christine, you there?
Here. Said she's there.
I wonder if it didn't hook up.
Is that not? Oh, maybe the microphone's not.
Christine?
Yes, hi.
Oh, hello. Okay, there we go. We got it.
We're ready for you if you'd like to to give us an overview of your program.
Sure. Well, I'm having a hard time hearing you, so I think I did hear an overview of the program. Unfortunately, I did not have access to the conversation prior to being brought into the meeting. I've been waiting, so I'll just give a brief overview. I know that the Frostburg First recently received a letter of agreement from our department. As a designated Main Street program, we enter into letter of agreements typically annually with our communities, which provide a overview of the roles and responsibilities of the local government, since the designation rests with local government. In the situation of Frostburg, you have a nonprofit that you partner with to administer your program on a daily basis. So it outlines those roles and responsibilities as well. And then those of our department, the Department of Housing and Community Development, serves as a state coordinating program for Maryland because of the program being connected to Main Street America, which is obviously is a national program that I believe is represented, 47 states are represented in that cohort. So the letter of agreement talks about the things that are required of your program, such as having a full-time Main Street manager that is actively working in the district, attending training and professional development. It talks about funding sources and kind of allocations of those fundings. Because this is a program of the cities, you have a responsibility to contribute to the work of the program, both in kind, financially, and maybe supporting it through volunteer efforts in other ways. And so it kind of outlines that as well. And other than that, I'd be happy to take any questions or speak specifically about something that is of interest to the group.
It doesn't appear, Christine, that there's any questions or anything. So, yeah, we certainly thank you for your time, being able to jump on here. I know there was a technical issue at the beginning, but
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to contact me if there's any future questions or any needs may arise. I just want to say that Frostburg First is a wonderful organization, and we are often referring to them to mentor and provide resources to other designated communities. So you should be very proud of that program that you guys have there in your community.
Thank you, Christine.
Sure.
thank you so much, Christine. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Take care.
Sure.
Thank you.
Everyone else you disconnected your phone from the meeting.
And I guess if there,
Just in case.
if there are any other
Russians
additional
listening.
questions, of course, I'm always available to discuss or go over anything else that you have here. But we are asked to submit this, I believe it's by June 28th.
Okay.
They don't usually give us a huge amount of turnaround time for stuff, but so we just ask if you're willing to go ahead and review that.
Yeah, I don't see any issues with that. Yeah, we'll get that to you.
Thank you very
Get
much.
that to you. Yep.
Thank you, Deirdre.
All right, that concludes item 3A on the agenda, special presentations. We'll move on then into general meeting topics. 4A, proposed FY25 budget amendments.
Okay, as we typically do at the end of the fiscal year, we review the status of the various revenue and expense accounts and try and bring things a little bit closer in line with how the actual results for the year have panned out. So this is just a high-level summary by fund and department of where we started the year with the original budget ordinance, the January amendments, and now the proposed June amendments. So you'll see that overall for the corporate fund, we're still coming to no net income, no loss. On the positive side, by doing the proposed amendments, we remove the budgeted use of fund balance. So based on the amendments after they had been done in January, we were going to require use of fund balance in the amount of $173,870. The main way we were able to come to this point is by reviewing the budget estimates, in particular for Maryland income tax revenue, and based on year-to-date results and anticipated accruals for the end of June, I've increased that budget line item to $85,000. I'm usually hesitant to be too aggressive with income tax revenue estimates at the beginning of the year, but at this point in the year, looking back at prior year results for June revenue, I feel comfortable with that increase.
Good.
The other significant increase among the revenue line items at this point is in interest income. For the corporate fund, that's an increase of $110,000. Again, we did not know at the beginning of the year. It was an election year. We don't know what's going to happen with the Federal Reserve setting rates. We have enjoyed a very good interest rate on the city's money market account. We're still holding over $13 million in that account. Again, being cautious and conservative, we were waiting, and at this point in the year, we do project that total income line item within the corporate fund will be about $510,000 for the year, and that is an increase of $110,000. The other change in the project reimbursement line item, and in error, I pulled that line item down too much with the January budget amendment, so the increase in that line item is just kind of getting it back where it needs to be. That reflects reimbursements that the city was entitled to for the child care center. We also had the Bureau of Mines building, which had not been in the original budget, so the city incurred expenses for that. That shows up in capital outlay, but then we received reimbursements, kind of bringing us even in that. We also have the pantry project, and POS grants are reflected in that. So overall, the budget amendments increase corporate fund revenue by $453,130. I'll hit some of the highlights in the expenditures and in the corporate fund. Some of these are just a reallocation. The big changes, as I mentioned, within the administrative budget and capital outlay, that takes into account, as I mentioned, Bureau of Mines building, child care center. Also, the roundabout design gets included there, and completion of child care center and the parking lot, that all fell within this fiscal year. We had unexpected expenses. If you recall, the HVAC issues we had in this building back in the winter, that was a significant expense. We also had repairs last summer, so that increases our building maintenance line item. We've also put in there, as somewhat of a placeholder, $15,000 increase for the armory line item. We know that we need a new alarm system. Hayden has been working on trying to get estimates on that. So if we have more information that gives us a more firm number between now and the end of the week, we can adjust that prior to preparing the resolution for the budget. But we do know that there will be an additional expense there, and that budget line item has pretty much already been spent for the year. Among the hotel motel allocations that were approved last year, there was money allocated for the Habitat Restore. Since that did not happen in Frostburg, that is part of the subtraction. And also $5,000 that had been for the Palace roof, we realized had been part of the prior year allocation. So it was dispersed this year, but it was obligated in the prior year. So that's that change. We can move along to within community development. I didn't have a chance to talk to Bethany prior to this meeting, but I think the $25,000 I was pulling out of community legacy projects, I think I'm gonna have to put that back in potentially, so that may change before next week as well. The larger changes are within the street department and public safety budget line items. Within public safety, you see a lot of increases and decreases in many accounts. Overall, the total budget is only increasing $10,000, but we realized that we needed to provide additional funds to cover the obligations. Police reform refers to the body camera contract. So you'll see that line item increased to $8,500. They have had, limited savings among workers' comp and the gas, oil, grease line.
Excuse me.
We tried again to accommodate expenses year to date as best as we know. It was a bad winter, as you know, so we incurred additional overtime expenses. We made the transition from comp time to primarily paid overtime this winter. So that tacked on with a difficult winter situation. So we made a budget amendment in the street department and the sewer department reflecting additional overtime costs, as well as we had the additional salt expense. Even though we did a budget amendment in January for salt, there continued to be an increased need for salt during the season, and then a change in not being able to get salt from the state bid supplier, having to go to an emergency supplier. So it was a very unusual year for salt. I look back last year, we were just barely over, I think it was $103,000 in the prior fiscal year, so I don't think there's any reason for alarm. We started the year empty as well, or nearly empty with supplies, so. Thankfully, we do have those additional revenue sources that are kind of absorbing some of these expenses. The other thing is the street department had some equipment repairs that needed to be done, so we filled in additional funds there. Recreation department, they did not hire any seasonal laborers specifically for the rec, so the salaries and the other expenses, that's in that department 183. We took and moved up into pool operating expense. They had some repairs that were needed for the chemical controller, and there was another repair that came up recently prior to the pool. Yes, thank you. So it was deemed that money was needed in pool operating.
So now when you say no seasonal employees are hired, does that mean that the lifeguards are on a different line item?
So lifeguards fall in Department 181,
Okay, I see, okay.
and then day camp is Department 182. Department 183, in past years, they sometimes had to hire someone extra just to help with the grass mowing.
Yeah, landscape, we talked about that.
And they have a great crew, and they have managed somehow with existing full-time staff, so.
Got it.
That's the reason for that change. So again, overall corporate fund, increase in revenue, change in expenses, get rid of use of fund balance. For the water fund, happy to report we're able to remove the need for use of fund balance based on these budget amendments.
Good.
By looking and seeing where expenses had not been fully utilized within purification plant maintenance and water supply expense. In addition to adding on some interest income and some other, minor revenue sources. Overall, there's a decrease in water fund expenses of $54,250. So that puts that fund in a better situation. As you recall, when we talked about the FY26 budget, we were gonna need to use fund balance next year. So this is a good scenario to not need it for the remainder of FY25. And you can,
What was
address
the,
issues going forward with rates and so forth.
approximately, what was the amount of fund balance that we included in FY26? You don't have to look it up if you have a good guess.
Around 100,000
That's what I
perhaps.
thought, okay, so that takes half of it right there, okay.
So, again, not a good scenario to need fund balance, but perhaps we only budgeted for 4 months, potentially of water sales to county in FY26. That may or may not change.
Okay.
It's already changed for this year.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
So that's short version in the water fund. In the sewer fund, we didn't really propose many changes other than adding additional money for the overtime for some of those individuals. We did not make any changes in this version of the budget for the CSO projects. As you can imagine, Public Works Department was very busy at the end of May dealing with flood emergencies, and so we just left those as is at this point. In the surcharge fund, increase of revenue both for the surcharge as well as interest income. When we did the original budget, we had not counted on charging county EDUs for as long as we did. So that's the increase in that. We also did have an additional expense for the purchase of another pump at Piney Dam, and there were some bridge work that was needed. And finally, in the garbage fund, minimal additional income, a little bit for interest income, and then just some reallocation of some other expenses. So net change of $3,400 in that fund. So there may still be some minor adjustments that are needed between now and the resolution next week. I've been on vacation this past week, so the department heads, were not able to communicate with me after I shared this with them before I went on vacation. But overall, these would be the proposed changes in wrapping up fiscal year 25.
Okay. Anything else on that?
In the process of going through many emails today, Hayden did share an email with me about his request for consideration of an intern. I'll let him address that, and whether that would be considered and how that might impact another budget amendment.
Yep, so for this summer, I had planned on having an intern, and then we were kind of shifting some money around to make sure that we weren't overextending ourselves. But I have money left over in one of my public works budgets through the end of July 1, and then I'm going to have money left over in my mapping budget for 26 through September. I'm planning to have an intern for approximately 11 weeks. It would be an $800 budget amendment through July 1, and then it would be a $3,000 budget amendment for fiscal year 26. That mapping budget money comes from us canceling, what's the program you use?
ArcGIS?
No, not ArcGIS.
Oh,
iWork. So Public Works is getting rid of our iWork program and just moving towards ArcGIS, and that's a $5,000 a year payment. So that goes away for us. So that opens up the door to that $3,000 for the intern in 2026, and then the $800 through July 1 would come from, for the rest of this year, would come from my Public Works budget, which has a couple $1,000s left in it now. So the money's there to move around. I just didn't want to do that without your guys' permission. So
How, are they gonna be full-time? How many hours are they working?
20 hours a week.
20 hours?
Yes.
Okay. 11 weeks.
Yep. So that money is shot a little bit high, because it won't be $3,800 over 11 weeks.
So,
I just wanted to err on the side of caution.
20 hours at 11 weeks at $15 an hour is $3,300.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
As an employee or as a independent contractor?
independent contractor, kind of like we've done in the past. That's how we did Sailors, right? Sailors was just a contract.
She was paid through payroll as an
Okay.
employee.
So then it would be an employee.
Yeah, it would probably be better if we did it as a contractor. That way we're not on the hook for
That's fine with
Social
me.
Security and tax, whatever else that we have.
That's fine with me. Whatever.
I mean, it would save us a little money if we did that way.
Just have to be written into the contract that way.
Something like that.
They have to know for his own income tax reporting purposes.
Gotcha.
Alright. So, that'll require, I guess, an adjustment for FY '26. The next two are both you also, Mrs. Jones. Update to the designation for retirement.
So the city has currently 2 designated retirement coordinators with their own state retirement pension system. One being Trevor Sisler, and I'm the third one. So it would require a resolution of the mayor and council to officially remove me as a retirement coordinator and to name Hayden Phillips, who I failed to introduce. Hayden Phillips will be the new director of finance. So by resolution, you would approve her to then take on that role.
Okay. Yeah, that seems pretty cut and dry.
And then likewise on the city bank accounts and for authorized signatures, we would request a resolution to remove Hayden as he has been acting city administrator and myself myself, and to replace authorized signatures with Patrick O'Brien as new city administrator and Amy Phillips as director of finance.
Yep, we can certainly do that. Is that something that we need to do? Well, we need a resolution, so. Will you have to be there when we go to Somerset Trust to do that?
No, removing someone doesn't require them to
Okay.
be there, just the
Just
people
to
that
add
are being
someone,
added
okay.
needed to be there.
Okay. So yeah, that seems pretty easy too.
And again, my apologies, I did not introduce you, Amy Phillips. Welcome to the city.
Thank you.
So,
That's it as far as that one. So we're on item 4D now, which is the 2 ordinances.
Yes. So all of these were discussed last month. This will be the second reading for these. For the benefit of everybody here, I'll just go over them really quick. Ordinance 2025-04 is in reference to section 7-4F of the city code, which is the commercial property rehabilitation tax credit. So this ordinance just makes it crystal clear that final authority in granting these tax credits falls with the mayor and city council. The way it reads right now, it's a little confusing. It kind of sounds like the decision-making power lies in the community development director and the finance director. So we just wanted to have this passed just to make it very clear who the authority, who has final authority in granting those tax credits. And then ordinance 2025-05 is in regard to the changes that we proposed to the rental housing ordinance. The biggest change as part of that is bringing that rental inspector position in-house. It also gives the mayor and council flexibility to go back to a third-party system if desired. It just kind of clarifies some definitions, cleans up some timelines, things like that, and then also introduces the digitizing of our rental housing system. So rather than having to fill out paper forms for everything, it's all done online through our existing iWork portal. So happy to answer any questions about that, but since last month's work session, Michael cleaned up the formatting issues that were noted, and I don't recall any other edits that were requested. So it's pretty much in a cleaner version of what you saw last month.
Okay. Works for me. Anything else on that? Item E, request for repeal of open container law. It says Lydia.
Since Nick was gonna miss tonight, but I'll let you go since you're here.
No problem either way. Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The city received a request for a temporary repeal of the open container ban during the Lemonade Stroll event. Ultimately, I would recommend that you approve that. No concerns at all from the police department, and certainly glad to answer any questions you may have.
Lemonade's a controlled substance.
There might be some other items in some of the lemonades for adults over 21.
I see. I see. Okay. No, that's fine. All right, that's all under meeting topics. So move on then to item 5, which is other discussion stuff, the MOU.
Yes, I'm sorry that I do not have a draft for you this evening, but I do hope to have that as soon as possible and definitely before next week. I just wanted to let you know, so we've been talking about the stabilization grant program. The county applied for and was awarded $250,000 through the state of Department of Housing and Community Development, through the state's Strategic Demolition Fund. They received $250,000, and that is basically going to be subgranted out to Frostburg buildings that fall within a specific defined geographic region that will be on Main Street from Water to Bowery. So we've talked about this several times, and this MOU basically is going to formalize that relationship between the city and the county. So the city, I as the city representative on this project will create the grant application packet and collect the applications and forward them to the review committee, which will be comprised of 3 members of city staff. We're thinking probably myself, Hayden, and Amy on the finance side of things. And then county economic development, and then either county finance or county planning and zoning, just whichever employee has the availability to take this on. So the way that it'll work, I'll accept the applications, review them, they'll go to the review committee, then I will compile the results in a report for the mayor and council, and then I will bring those recommendations to you at one of your meetings. You all will have final authority on which projects get approved and which do not. And then once you all have selected the projects that are approved, they get forwarded to the county commissioners, and that gives the final authorization. Then it moves over to the county. So they actually enter into the sub-grant agreements with the applicants. The county is the one who's writing the checks. They're taking care of the whole financial side of things. And then they do all the grant agreements and disbursements. The terms of the MOU will be from the date of execution. That likely will be June 26th. It'll be the second monthly county commissioner meeting. And that will run through August 15th, 2027, and that is per DHCD's grant guidelines. And then everything else in the MOU is just kind of your standard provisions. So that's what to expect. I'll have a draft to you all ASAP, but I'm happy to answer any questions in the meantime.
Yeah, no, we've talked about this a couple times. I think it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next, Piney Dam.
Yeah, so this one, it's not a formal agreement, but it will become a formal agreement if it's something you guys want to move forward with. To make a long story short, the way we pump water from Piney, we run the pumps at 100%. So they kick on, they're at 100% capacity, and then they pump the water. We figured out that we can run those pumps at reduced capacity, but to do that, you have to hook them up to what's called a VFD, a variable frequency drive. Looks like total cost for that project for one pump is about $45,000, and Potomac Edison has agreed to go in with us on it on an energy incentive of about $13,000. So out of $45,000, they're willing to kick in $13,000. The reason being is because if we use less of their energy, they can send that energy to other communities that need it more, so like the Baltimores and DCs. So I just want to make sure that this is something that you guys actually want to pursue before I go and do it. Based on my calculations, the payback period would be about a year to a year and a half until we start making our money back from the reduced energy. So instead of running that pump at, it's a 150 horsepower pump, and that's the smallest pump. We have one that's 240 horse, but just for the smallest one, by running it at 100%, we're using almost 2/3 extra energy because it's not linear with pumps and pump curves. So if we can put a VFD on it, reduce it down to 75 to 80%, we reduce our energy cost by almost 2/3 on that pump.
And we can readjust that if we need to.
Correct. So the VFD is actually smart to where it'll ramp up or ramp down.
So if we need to run it at 100%, it'll kick it.
Correct. So, like I said, we're getting $13,000. Now that's not the exact number, but if you guys want to do this, then I would get the formal numbers off of Potomac Edison and then S&S Electric for the hookups. But it looks like about a $45,000 project with a $13,000 check coming from Potomac Edison. So our out-of-pocket cost, what's that take us down to? $32,000. So
it only goes on one pump too.
we can run it with one pump.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 3 just for the sake of cycling through those pumps.
Sure.
So we would plan to do one pump this year on the VFD, one pump next year, one pump.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So if that's something you guys want to pursue, I'll start setting up the actual agreements and the bids. If not, then we won't pursue it. So
Yeah, if it's going to save us money in the long term, that's fine.
Yeah.
okay. That's kind of what I figured, but I just wanted to make sure that, it is a chunk of money. So
Next is U2. This is the insurance opt-out.
Yep, so historically with our insurance, the city had offered, out of our own coffers, out of our own city bank account, a $40 a pay insurance opt-out payment. It was $5 for dental and $35 for health insurance, that if you decided to decline the health insurance, we would pay you that total of $40 every pay. We met with, now that we've gone through these insurance changes, we met with CBIZ, and CBIZ's recommendation was, for potential legal reasons, to do away with that payment. Lydia and I linked up with CBIZ, talked through it, and said, what are the legal parameters that you're afraid of that we could incur? And they said, well, if you're not showing proper proof of other insurance, that could lead you into some legal troubles. So we kind of walk them through the process of what we do right now is that if you take that opt-out payment, you have to provide proof of your alternative insurance. So that kind of washed the board of that one. They just wanted to make sure that it didn't look like we were trying to incentivize people to not take our insurance if we were targeting a certain age bracket. If you were 60 and over, we tried to convince you to not take our insurance. But walking through that, we are safe from those legal concerns. So we come back to you, the council, and see, do you still want to offer this $40 a pay opt-out for the insurance? We would probably reduce it to $35, just take away the dental opt-out, because the payment per pay period for dental is about $2, maybe $2.35. So we would just do away with the $5 for the dental and go for a $35 a pay incentive for those coming off of our insurance. There's some financials that go into it that I'm sure Elaine could elaborate on. And I'm sure I'd like to hear Elaine's opinion on it as well. But my opinion of it is that it's a nice benefit to offer our employees that's not super cost prohibitive to us, because we think we have 15 people who take the payment now. So at the end of the day, it's not that much money for us. That is a nice benefit to provide. With that being said, we do not have to provide it. So we wanted to turn it over to council and see if it was something you wanted to continue to do, or if you wanted to do away with it. And I'm sure Elaine has thoughts as well, if you want to.
I agree with the dental thing before Elaine jumps in. Because if it's only costing them $2, we're paying them $5 not to do it. That does look bad, even though we don't mean it that way. But an individual insurance premium is probably $150 or more. Correct. So
I was not part of the subsequent meeting with CBIZ to hear their explanation. Based on what you've said, if you wanted to do that, you would just have to require employees to refresh their documentation on a regular basis, because the way we did it before, we only asked for proof one time up front, and there's no recurring obligation then to show continuing proof of coverage.
they could just do that during open enrollment every year, whenever.
At least, or like some plans are on calendar year basis instead of fiscal year. So if someone's on a calendar year plan, you might then have to ask, those people, it might be a twice a year exercise for the city, if that's what's required to. You just have to maybe build that into your documentation if you offer it to employees based on your expiration date or whatever, to have to refresh documentation.
Thank you. Lydia, since you were in on the meeting with me, did I touch on everything?
I agree with that was how the conversation went, and I know in the initial conversation they had said, well, we recommend doing away with it, but whenever we said, well, what are your concerns, and we had an answer for every single one of their concerns, they said that other people still offer it. So it's not like they don't have clients, not very many anymore. Specifically, whenever you move to offering a high deductible plan was the concern. We've never done that before. I'm not concerned about it after the conversation with CBIZ.
That might be another reason to decrease the opt-out payment, because the premium now for a single individual under the high deductible plan drops to like $47. So if you're offering $35, that's very much disincentivizing someone to take advantage of the health insurance plan. So you might want to be dropping it down to 20 or
That's a good point.
something not so close to what their premium is.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So would your recommendation be 20?
Go with 20?
So 40 a month then.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
that's fine.
Just state it on a per pay basis, not a month.
Okay.
Because
Because
some
there's
months have 3
there's
checks.
26 pays in a
Some
year.
months
If
have
you turn
3
it into
pay periods.
monthly, that really gets complicated.
Okay.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was easy. Item D.
Yep, so we've been going back and forth through the process of this Appetit demo with the owners, Larry and Megan. At this point, everything's on the surface about it.
Just remember.
So we've been going back and forth on it, and we've approved already the demo agreement with Brierside. That will not change. There's nothing changing in this about that one. What potentially we're looking at changing now is the agreement we would have with the owners of 84 to 88, so the Petit building. The first would be that they do not want to subdivide. However, they are amenable to putting in the agreement that they have a strict timeline with a set date in the agreement for making their own form of parklet subject to mayor and council approval. And the kind of agreed upon year was 3 years out. Whereas as soon as the building's down, it's privacy screened with privacy fencing, just wooden fencing so that it's shielded. And then within 3 years, they are required to put up a parklet in the event that there is not a building there, that they don't build a building. If they don't, they would have to come to us and say, here's the parklet we're going to do. Does this pass your muster? That council would approve it. If they don't do it within 3 years, then they would be subject to penalties in the loan, which would be most likely targeted at the loan forgiveness. So if they don't do this parklet, then they void their ability to get their loan forgiveness. Now the second part that we would look at changing would be the loan forgiveness aspect. We had originally agreed upon a $40,000 loan forgiveness at the end after, I think it's 12 years of good faith payments, whatever that $40,000 comes to. They would like to see it brought up to $54,000 to where they pay on $60,000 of that construction demo to us, and then we would look at forgiving the last $54,000 of the construction demo. So it's $114 total. Now obviously that is a change to a contract. We would still make them do the good faith payments all the way up to $60,000, and then forgive. It would be up to that council to forgive it at the end of $54,000. But it is a change, so I wanted to make sure we brought it to the council, brought it to your guys' attention, and saw if everybody was on board with that.
The issue is that they don't think that they can afford the payment with the original amount. And we don't want to get into a situation where they just stop paying on it and then we're out and everything. So we're trying to work as best as we can while still guarding our position.
Correct.
To get something from it.
I'm fine with the payment thing. My thing is, we had an agreement with them before that they would complete something within a certain time frame, and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And they haven't done anything to the side of the building where LG's is in 5 years.
I just walked by there last night and there's
So
broken picnic tables and high weeds. And
their history of doing things in a timely manner are,
So do we just want to make sure that we're super strict in our penalties then?
yeah, I think we just make sure that it's clear in the contract that if it's not done in that time period, then the loan forgiveness goes away. Then you're just paying. That's,
That would be my thoughts as well. And then I will go through and finish drafting the full contract, and then I'll make sure everyone has a chance to read it over. But like I said, we've already approved the demo contract with Brierside, and we've already approved going into an agreement with them. But just since it's changing slightly, I'll make sure everyone gets a chance to read it before we go in on anything. But that's all that. The other thing, we're still going to shoot for having stuff as done as possible before 4th of July, but we realize that that's a super tight timeline. I'll keep you guys posted on the timeline itself. So that's all I have. So.
anything else? I have one more question. This is more of a question. Did you find out anything more from Rich about the FEMA money for the back truck? So just clarify. So I got a call from Rich last week one day, and he said that they're putting together their proposal. The county, everybody's putting together their proposal to get FEMA money, and he called to ask if we needed anything or if we had incurred anything. And the only thing that we could think of was the pump on the vac truck that broke. So they were going to include that in the proposal to see if they could get FEMA to pay for that.
So we got the cost estimate off of VACCON to get it rebuilt, sent it to Rich, and then he sent it on to whoever he needs to talk to down there, and we're waiting to hear back. So.
But we did submit it, and okay. I mean, that'd be great if they'd pay for it.
Yeah.
How much?
21,000? Yeah, 21,000.
Myers.
Yeah, like $21,550, I think. Yeah. So if that was money that we didn't have to pay, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
what's the problem with getting the building tore down before the 4th?
It was just our goal.
I know it was, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it seemed like it could have happened, but now it can't.
Well,
They got to sign the contract first.
yeah.
Right.
By the time we
That's
get
where we're.
the final contract done, it's June 10th now. By the time we get the final contract done and finalized, It'll take Mike a day or two, because I'll have him expedite it. We get it in their hands, say, at the earliest tomorrow, at the latest, we'd say Thursday or Friday. They probably wouldn't have it signed and back over us until Monday. By then, we're looking at, a week and a half to tear down a 4-story building. And
Oh, it's longer than that. Mike's, I mean, I don't, Monday's pretty ambitious, I think, to get it.
yeah,
But even if we did, oh, no, you're right, it is only
yeah.
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, by the time they mobilize, get on site. And my fear, I would love to push for it. My fear is we have a half torn down building on the 4th. And then, then it is definitely deemed unstable.
I mean, could we, and tell me no if the answer's no, could they just work from front to back and get it enough that we could open the sidewalk?
No, not the way that structure works.
See, they're, how are they doing the top? They're just.
By hand.
By hand, yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna have a crew guys up there for basically 2 weeks straight, going brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then once they get the first floor down, we'll start eating at it with a machine. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, could it be done? Yes, and we will push for that with all haste. But I don't want to see us get into a situation where we have a half-done building there.
I mean, either way, we're still gonna have that sidewalk blocked off if it's not,
Yeah.
completed, so.
Yep. But that's all the details with that one. So, unless there's any other questions.
Works for me. Anything else? Move to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
There it is.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.